From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Federal government raises alarm that Boko Haram and ISWAP insurgents have changed tactics, now target Christians in order to spark religious war. Police in Katsina State killed 17 bandits in the course of repelling attack in Gurbi village in Kankara local government area. Senate criticizes federal government arrangements at international airports for preventing entry of coronavirus into the country. World Health Organization warns that coronavirus outbreak has reached a decisive point and has pandemic potential. Plus, you'll see business sports news from Abuja, the FCT, and later, international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, OPEC Secretary General Mohammed sees rebound in oil prices despite lower demand concerns as Brent and WTI hits fresh new lows.
On sports news tonight, Spanish giants Real Madrid FC set to appeal red card shown to captain Sergio Ramos against Manchester City in the UEFA Champions League.
And from Abuja, former Independent National Electoral Commission Chairman Professor Maurice Iwu asks Federal High Court to transfer his trial on fraud allegations from Lagos to Abuja as a result of his old age.
Nigeria's Minister of Information, Alhaji Mohammed, is asking Nigerians not to fall for the antics of Boko Haram insurgents who are out to create a religious war in the country. The minister, who addressed the media in Abuja today, says the insurgents are now targeting Christians in an attempt to trigger a religious war in the country. Recently, the insurgents killed Mr. Lawan Andimi, chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, in Michika, Adamawa State, and Robfield Dalip, a student of the University of Maiduguri, among others, in attacks perceived to be against Christians.
In the wake of a renewed onslaught by tireless military against Boko Haram and their ISWAP allies in recent times, the insurgents have apparently changed their strategy. They have started targeting Christians and Christian villages for a specific reason, which is to trigger a religious war and throw the nation into chaos. Apparently, they have realized how emotive and divisive religion can be when exploited by unscrupulous persons. We want to therefore appeal to religious leaders, both Christians and Muslims, not to fall for this desperate move by the insurgents. We appeal to them not to allow them to divide us as a people and weaken our resolve to deal decisively with the insurgents. In addition, we must also give our unalloyed support to the military, which has also upped the ante against the insurgents. The resort to the increasing use of guerrilla tactics by the insurgents is a sign of weakness on their part.
In the meantime, 17 notorious bandits reportedly terrorizing Kankara and Damusa local government councils of Katsina State have been killed by a combined team of the police and vigilantes. The bandits, who specialize in kidnapping, had faced fierce resistance by the local vigilante groups after they attacked Gurbi village of Kankara local government council, killing 4 persons and rustling a large number of livestock. Confirming the incident in a statement, the spokesman of the State Police Command, Mr. Gambo Issa, says the Commissioner of Police, Sanusi Buba, had ordered the Kankara Division of Operation Pof Adder to the scene to support the vigilantes. According to the statement, some of the bandits managed to escape with gunshot wounds in the shootout. Rustled animals recovered from the fleeing gunmen include 80 cattle and 108 sheep. Security operatives have been combing nearby bushes to arrest the bandits and recover their operational weapons. Still on ensuring security, a bill for an act to provide special funding, training and provision of modern security equipment for the military has passed through second reading in the House of Representatives. Some of the lawmakers who supported the bill emphasized the need to fund the military beyond the annual budgetary provisions, while others questioned the utilization of the funds so far provided for the fight against insurgency. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
Equipment for the revamping.
Only one motion of urgent public importance is raised at the final plenary session in the House of Representatives.
Indeed, a downturn.
Representative Ifeanyi Moma wants the House to investigate ongoing work on some of the country's major roads.
The need to investigate the slow pace of work on the three critical road projects, which are Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway, and the second Niger Bridge. There is evidence of slow pace of work on these three critical projects mentioned above. This has indeed resulted in traffic congestion, fatal accidents being recorded daily.
The motion is referred to the House Committee on Works.
Honorable colleagues.
Meanwhile, following recent meetings between lawmakers and the service chiefs, a bill for special funding for the military, aside the annual budgetary provision, is up for debate.
Nigeria is at war at the moment, but we don't have a budget that can finance a war. What we have at the moment, Mr. Speaker, is an envelope-based budget that cannot prosecute this war that we're in.
Even though I may not agree that we are at war, but I know that we are suffering from serious insecurity issue that needs funding. This particular fund is not going to be a conduit pipe for anybody.
I believe every single member in this chamber, if we are really serious, then we should donate a percentage of our salaries to the armed forces.
For some lawmakers, there are still unanswered questions.
I want to find out, has the army cried out to say that the information they have been given to Nigeria are lies? We need to know. Because if we are saying we need a special funding for the war, the army is telling us that they have won, that it's just a matter of time they have uprooted. And now we are giving them a special funding. My fear is that even without special funding come, are they going to account for it?
The bill eventually passes through second reading. In one breath, the House of Representatives is asking for more money for security agencies, whose heads it has totally condemned and asked to be removed, but the president has ignored. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Senate is dissatisfied with the federal government's efforts at guaranteeing that coronavirus is prevented from getting into the country. At today's plenary, Senator Robert Boniface told his colleagues that arrangements at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport to prevent COVID-19 from entering the country are severely inadequate. He wants authorities to properly screen visitors coming into the country. The Senate is consequently mandating its committees on primary health care and health to work with the Ministry of Health to ensure thorough screening of travelers at all entry points.
The wisdom is that prevention is better than cure. When we landed in South Africa, we were not allowed to leave the aircraft for a good 30 minutes. Officers of the medical corps of the South African Army came into the aircraft and screened everybody before we were allowed out of this aircraft. When I arrived yesterday at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, there was no screening. All we were given is a sheet of paper to indicate whether we were sick, whether we were going to one country or the other, and how we'll be contacted in emergency. What are you contacting in emergency? How do you train me? How do you know whether I fall sick after I left the airport? So this is very frightening, Mr. President and the senators. Very frightening. And I think something has to be done to ensure that we do not give way to a situation which we will not be able to control. So, Mr. President, I hope that I'm making this observation for Nigerians to note and for the Ministry of Health to take adequate action. We should be screened before we get into the airport.
Well, also today, the coronavirus was discussed at the National Executive Council meeting, where it emerged that 11 suspected cases in the country have tested negative. It was the second meeting of the Council for 2020, chaired by Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo. The Council also ordered a forensic audit of all accounts run by the power distribution companies across the country. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
Governor Diri Doye was welcomed into the council by his colleagues at the second National Economic Council meeting, chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, held at the council chambers of the Presidential Villa in Abuja. After the meeting, Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State, and the Edo State Deputy Governor, Mr. Philip Shuaibu, gave a rundown of matters discussed, beginning with the status of the excess crude accounts, which now stands at $71.8 million, and efforts by states to fight insecurity.
Say 325 excess crude account depleted to 71. 250 million was an agreed investment by the governors and federal government to NSIA. And then you ask, where is the other 4 million? It was used in paying certain consultancy services.
The Lagos State Governor then briefed on the submission of the Minister of Health to Council on the efforts towards preventing the spread of COVID-19 in Nigeria.
The good news is that, yes, there have been a total of 11 suspected cases, but all the 11 are turned out to be negative. In fact, there was a scare in Lagos yesterday, about 2 cases, but all have confirmed, negative up until as we speak. So Lassa fever incident in the last 1 month. We've got a total of 103 confirmed cases nationwide, and we've got 13 deaths. And they're in 18 states that this incident have appeared. Of all these confirmed cases, about 72% of them are prevalent in Edo, Ondo, and Ebonyi. So the ministry and federal government are concentrating on these 3 major states.
Then, as promised at the last NEC meeting, an update of the overhauling of the ownership structure of the electricity distribution companies.
He also told NEC that they will be carrying out forensic audit of all bank accounts of all discos, and also that the state government to provide details of their investment in the electricity distributing companies.
According to the council, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo will be leading a polio outreach program in the nation's capital on March the 26th. And as for the power distribution companies, they're calling on the public to provide them with all the information they can on their performances across the country. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
And now to judicial proceedings. A High Court sitting in Lokoja, the Kogi State capital, has declared the impeachment of former Deputy Governor Simon Achuba null and void. The court also ruled that the subsequent nomination of Mr. Edward Onoja as his replacement did not follow due process and is a violation of the Constitution. The presiding judge, Justice John Olorunfemi, described Mr. Achuba's impeachment by the State House of Assembly as a constitutional coup hatched and executed in a democracy. Mr. Achuba was impeached by the State House of Assembly in October 2019.
As we've rightly heard from the judgment of the court cannot engage or encourage judicial rascality or legislative rascality as was displayed by those who were supposed to be honorable members but are far from being honorable. The judgment to us is a victory to democracy and for the spirit of the constitution of our land, which is the ground norm And we want to thank our Lordship for this well-seasoned judgment. It is nothing but the best I've ever seen in recent time in my legal practice.
Judgment has been delivered. We listen. We will get a copy of the judgment, study it, and advise our client accordingly.
But so far, are you satisfied with the judgment?
It's the judgment of the court. As a lawyer, I should be satisfied.
In part 2, after the break, we'll be joined by a legal practitioner, Ojonimi Ape, to examine the possibilities of achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 16, which focuses on peace and justice in strong institutions. Please join us again.